Hello everyone, my name is Kristine Phung. So I'm working for Rapyd Singapore as Head of Platform Solution, and I welcome everyone today with us at Rapyd Singapore office space. We welcome also everyone on our LinkedIn live stream with the discussion today about marketplace and bi-directional payment. We are hosting this event in partnership with Singapore Fintech Festival. So join me today. I would like to introduce also our panel, Mr. Chaitanya Kenneth Low and Evelina Ip from Arcadier Group. Hi everyone joining today. Thank you for coming to our space. Talking about the marketplace, so I think that Arcadier is an expert in this space. So Ken, would you like to tell us a bit more about Arcadier and what you guys do?
Sure. Arcadier, we are actually a SaaS marketplace technology company that enables anyone to create their own marketplaces easily. So you think about Wix and Shopify, you think of organizations like that creates an online store that you can do quite easily yourself. Arcadier, on the other hand, is very focused on a three-sided marketplace experience where you can, on the off-the-shelf technology, our SaaS technology, you can actually readily go in, register and create your own, whether it's a marketplace that looks like eBay or marketplace that looks like Airbnb. We do have all that technology available for you. On the higher end, we do have an enterprise proposition for larger organizations to also build a marketplace for their use cases and purposes. So we do have organizations like trade associations using that, or bigger other organizations that are building B2B type of marketplace, largely for procurement purposes. That's also possible. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. Over the last couple of years since we've launched, we have grown quite tremendously, and there are about more than 15,000 marketplaces have been built on Arcadier, over 180 countries throughout the world.
Wow, such an amazing growth that you experience. So coming back to our topic today, let's start with the most simple questions, like what is the marketplace, right? So when we're talking about marketplace, it actually involves different parties in the trades, involving buyers, sellers, product and services. And especially in the COVID times, we're talking also not only physical products and services, but also most of it has gone digital as of now. So when we're talking about marketplace, right, did you know that actually 66% of B2C online sales globally is expected to happen by 2022? So talking about scale, there's a lot of opportunity in this space, but it also has its own challenges. For example, localization, efficiency, and so on, right? So I would like to ask, again, like the expert opinion here, Arcadier Group, what does it take to scale a marketplace successfully? So what we like to touch place on, maybe Eve, can you share with us some of the example of marketplace that has happening by or built by Arcadier especially?
Yeah, of course. So as Ken mentioned, we've helped support empower over 15,000 marketplaces. So over the thousands and thousands of marketplaces that have been built, we've seen some pretty interesting ideas. Every marketplace is unique. And just a few examples on this screen, just to give you a flavor of what some Arcadier users are doing. So it can vary from services like adventure tour guides to renting boats to belly dancers to sustainable products marketplaces, wedding services, B2B machinery rental. The types of marketplaces that can be built are endless, which we've very well seen on Arcadier.
And based on your own experience, can you walk us through some of the key features that you think very, very important for marketplace?
Yep. So when you look at marketplaces, there tend to be four main types: B2B, B2C, rental and services, and then digital goods. Typically, you can play by the 80-20 rule, whereby all marketplaces need some key core functionality that's the same. So things like an admin portal for the marketplace owner to customize a marketplace, whether it's like creating your categories or standardizing your fields, everything looks neat, tidy. But also seller portals. How are your sellers going to upload their inventory? How are they going to manage their orders? How are they going to track it? How are they going to talk to customers? Similarly, you also need, a buyer portal so they can go purchase the goods or services, and you'll also need to also have things like customer service, FAQs. They're all the same across any marketplace type. Where you start to see differentiation is between these 4 different types of marketplaces. So you'll want to make key considerations. Of course, payments is always a very key touch point that is different from marketplace to marketplace. But for B2B, let's say, when it comes, even before payments, when it comes to functionality, you'll be wanting to think, all right, do I need to have an RFQ process, request for quotation? Is there a unique approvals flow? Do I need to do MOQ, like minimum order quantities? The list goes on, but then it gets really interesting when you start talking about payments. So do you need to consider, if you're doing cross-border payments, how does it make sense for you to disperse and receive funds? Similarly, is it partial or milestone payments? If you're talking about big B2B purchases, oftentimes it's 50% on order of confirmation, and then maybe there's milestones throughout the order process or purchase process that you then pay 25% when it goes on export or when it's received on goods. And then additionally, oftentimes you have to think about escrow. It's not all B2B, of course, but for big value purchases, does that make sense, and how is that flow going to work? On the flip side, when you consider B2C is a completely different experience, right? Because the buyers, there's no approval process when we go onto Amazon or onto Airbnb. Users want fast, immediate results, and they want an easy experience when it comes to checking out. So you'll want to have a multi-merchant checkout cart so they can check out multiple items from multiple sellers all at once, like how you experience on Amazon. Similarly, they'll want ratings and reviews. Who doesn't want to know what they're buying? And then you'll also want to think about, on the payment side, how you want to monetize. Do you want to do split commission payment? So the marketplace administrator takes, 5% cut per every transaction. Do you want to monetize so it's a subscription, like the Dollar Shave Club? And then additionally, you always want to think about local payments. So that's so important, because it doesn't make sense to sell products in a market that you're not localized for, right? So in Singapore, is it PayLah? Is it GrabPay? In China, is it WeChat? Got to think about your end user and what makes the most sense and what's easiest for them, especially when it comes to B2C. So then services and rental are kind of the same-ish, because you're typically dealing with time. So time-based activities, and these things also tend to be a bit more flexible or require a bit of flexibility. So, when it comes to core marketplace features, you want to be considering your calendar. You want to have blackout dates and times. You also want to have ratings and reviews again. And then most importantly, you often want chat and negotiation, because even though you maybe list your services for, up to 4 hours, maybe somebody wants to negotiate what's a whole day for your wedding photography services like. So you want to be considering what your users want. And then similarly with payments, it's very important, because you can be talking about partial and milestone payments again, but maybe it's for a larger project. So if you're using, for example, interior designer or an architect to help you out, are you doing quarter up front? Are you doing half up front? And at what milestones throughout the project are you paying somebody? Similarly, you'll also, of course, have to talk about deposits and delayed payments. So when you're talking about Airbnb, especially when you're renting goods, people like to have a deposit to make sure that you don't trash their place. And then also, of course, you want to talk about local payments, because you want to make sure that the people who are providing those services are getting reimbursed in the way that makes sense for them and that make them want to use your platform. And then lastly, we have digital goods. So digital goods is a bit of a wild card. They can be very straightforward, like Shutterstock. You're just buying a picture from different sellers or different creators. Alternatively, if you have an app marketplace, it gets a lot more complex. So, are you talking about updates, license fees? How are you dealing with the different things that people need when in terms of they're purchasing a digital good? And then when it comes to payments, it might be in-flight payments. So when you're in the app or in the marketplace, are things on the fly? Do things need to be so seamlessly integrated with the payments that's already there that they don't feel like it's just an easy click or an agreement to go to the next step? And then lastly, how you want to monetize, again, it's always key for marketplaces. Are you doing commission or are you doing subscriptions? So just some key considerations and features for anybody who's looking to build a marketplace.
There's a few, but seems to be a lot. Okay, and then I think, Ken, you have been in this space for so long, doing dealing with so many different use cases. We all experienced so much in 2020 globally, right? And so in your point of view, what are the trends that you have observed recently that is happening in the marketplace?
Sure. I'm happy to share that. So today we just brought with myself about 8 different trends, and they're different coded. So the ones in dark blue are really very high level trends we see in terms of how marketplace adoptions are happening. And then the ones in green are essentially the types of marketplaces that we are seeing emerging very quickly. Very much so in the year 2020, given that we all know digital transformation doesn't come actually from consulting, but actual need for a business needs to really make sure that they still remain relevant even despite the situation we're facing this year. So let's start with the ones in blue, dark blue first, right? So what we've really noticed that over the last actually couple of years, marketplaces have become even more hyper-local and hyper-vertical. I think hyper-local in the sense that we are very used to the big marketplaces that spans all sorts of categories like eBay, like Amazon, where they sell everything from cars to diapers, right? So what we're starting to see is that they're coming smaller, they're very defined to a particular use case. Even from the days with Uber and Airbnb, where it's about a car booking marketplace. The other one is about accommodations rental marketplace. This is even getting even smaller. So over time, we've seen a lot of interesting marketplaces develop like Arcadier, like when Evelina was talking about marketplace for belly dancers, but in Germany, right? So we've seen that. We've also seen Airbnb, but for women travelers in Indonesia, for instance. So it's very hyper-local and hyper-vertical in its way it's used. During the COVID period, we've actually seen it also used by town councils, local councils, communities, and even entrepreneurs trying to help digital transform a little city in some parts of the US coming to use our system. We were giving some COVID reprieve when people are doing it for greater good, where they try to help all the mums and pups in that particular area digitize so that they have the ability to do takeaways and delivery, which a lot of these organizations and all these mums and pups stalls never thought broadly. So they're getting more hyper-local and hyper-vertical in more ways than one. Trust has always been an issue in terms of marketplace, right? Especially with the C2C type of marketplaces where the buyer does not know the seller and how do you trust that person? I mean, take for instance, now we have Carousel has Caro Trust and all that. It's largely to actually augment that whole transaction with level of trust, especially if it's cross-border. So blockchain is really very much a very good technology to use for marketplaces, and we've started to see a lot of that. We've been even asked by our users, do you actually provide blockchain for trust? We do partner with partners doing that. We actually do have a marketplace built out of Singapore for Japanese collectible toys. And they augment that with another blockchain organization in Singapore to have a level of trust for the reselling of these collectible toys. So it's very interesting augmentation, and we're starting to see a lot more use cases using blockchain on marketplaces. As a result of the COVID situation, a lot of businesses have also started to build their own marketplace to actually augment their business. Shopping malls, for instance, which I'll also be talking about as a trend. A lot of them already actually have an application, already have a way that collects CRM and consumer data. So what they really want is the marketplace to be able to be embedded within their own environment. So progressive web capability is something that seems to be a trend that we constantly ask for, so can use right on what we have, such that it's a seamless experience for the users themselves. Augmented reality is also fairly interesting, given that a lot of because of COVID, trade shows themselves, you no longer can walk into a trade show. And we also get a lot of that level of interest. I like to bring my trade shows online, especially retail type of trade shows. And quite often we get asked, do you have augmented reality where someone can walk into a trade show and then go to a booth or in a shopping center and go and buy items from there? So because of that, we also start to partner with some of these AR kind of companies to give that whole holistic experience. So those are the fundamental key big trends that we're seeing of late. So of the ones in green, right, as I mentioned, the O2O experience, more like offline to online when footfall traffic has fallen. We have also got a lot of interest from shopping malls, which essentially are offline marketplaces as you come and think about it, right? To augment we're using an online experience to augment their offline experience, because they still have to remain relevant even with the tenant base as well. So with the online experience, people can buy from the respective stores that used to be familiar with, and then get it delivered to their house, or they go and pick it up after that. So it's a lot easier. There's also a great awakening in recent days with the growth of B2B marketplaces. So I think there were some reports that said that B2B marketplace would reach like 3.6 trillion by 2024. So a lot of the procurement is coming from there. In particular, we're seeing a lot coming from healthcare as well. The healthcare sector is also moving towards the online world. So very interesting. They usually are the late adopters when it comes to B2B. B2C is usually the first round of adopters, but we're seeing that. And then last but not least, digital goods also is getting exciting. A lot of requests for digital goods, especially digital classes. You know, we get the question, are you integrated to Zoom, for instance, so that I can actually have a marketplace for digital online classes? So these are the fundamental shifts that we're starting to see in the marketplace online space.
Wow, very, very insightful. Thank you so much. I think which bring us to a very, very interesting topic, right? Since there's so many different components, one might have a questions in my I interested in the space and then I want to start the business.
Yeah.
What would I do? So, in your expertise, right? What can you give advice to people who want to start?
Sure. I mean, although we enable people to build marketplaces, that doesn't, and as a technology platform, that doesn't stop users to start asking us, what I need to do. Can I share my marketplace idea with you, and can you tell me whether it works? Like, we get that question all the time, and some of them actually want us to sign NDAs because they want to tell us something. I said, it's probably been done before at some stage, right? So the advice we give people are usually, right, I think I've listed out 4 points here of the kind of advice, right? So these are the types of questions we usually ask them to challenge them in terms of their thinking about, before you start, you should think about these before you actually embark on your marketplace journey. So the first point is that we always have to tell people that technology is actually the least of your problems. Really, like people like us can solve that, but everyone comes with the idea and comes with the biggest issue being technology. I said that's really the least of your problems. Have you thought about the business plans? How are you going to physically operate it? Can it actually function? So those are the fundamental questions you need to solve before you talk about technology, because there's a lot of us out there that can actually solve that very easily for you. The second thing is that when someone comes with an idea and we start talking about what they want to do, the fundamental question I ask, do you actually know the industry? You can't just think of a clever idea and try to jump in, because there's whether you understand the industry the traditional way or the online way, you actually have to understand the industry that you're embarking on. And the second lead-on question I will usually ask is, do you actually own one side of the equation? Marketplaces are inherently challenging to develop because there's the buyers and the sellers, right? So there's a chicken and egg issue. If you're trying to solve both at the same time, you're going to bound to fail. You have to be able to have level of access to at least one side of the equation to start. Otherwise, I would say don't even try, because it's going to be very challenging trying to build the user base and the supply base at the same time. So the third point is about building the minimum viable product first, right? So there's so many marketplace types out there. We get a lot of questions about having these, all the different features, it becomes a Frankenstein monster. I like that part of Lazada, but I actually like that part of Carousel. I like that part of Amazon, can you add in? But quite often, the user experience may not actually work because it just clashes. So we always ask people, even if you have deep pockets, do try to start with minimum viable product, test and learn, get feedback from the market, and augment very quickly if you have to. So that's the only best way, best use of your money, and also best use of your time at the same time. And the fourth thing is, do think about how you're going to monetize the platform and have that very clear at the beginning. Because if you're stuck on technology and you haven't thought about monetization, then you have probably got the whole story the other way around. Monetization, how are you going to make money from the marketplace, and what the types of payment types you're going to use for the marketplace, that becomes actually very, very critical. So I would suggest that anyone who wants to embark on creating a marketplace have all these 4 points in their minds.
Well, talking about the key elements of successful marketplace, you also talk about payment. So I want to switch over to Chaitanya. What is working in the payment industry for many years, and also you be part of one of the marketplace before, which is the ride-hailing companies. What is your experience or your understanding that you can share with us about the existing pain points of a marketplace and possible solution for them for the people who building their marketplace to tackle those issues?
Sure. Thanks, Kristine. And thanks, Ken and Eve, for the insights. So I'll actually take a thread that Ken mentioned earlier, which is owning one side of the equation. And if we move to the next page, from a payment perspective, there are 4 key elements that every marketplace administrator needs to tackle. And the way to do this, starting from a marketplace ownership perspective, if you are going after just the sellers, how quickly can you onboard sellers is a critical challenge. Because if you can't onboard sellers, you've lost that side of the equation already. Or if you can't onboard them quickly enough. So that's one of the pieces that the Rapyd stack actually helps solve by offering you an eKYC solution, which builds in transaction monitoring, AML checks, making sure that your sellers can onboard with you faster, quicker, at basically zero cost, and have them ready to transact and start accepting payments from their buyers. The second piece of that is, and a question we get a lot of times from our marketplace clients is, I have a globally relevant product. I have buyers in 65 countries. How do I make sure my customers can pay me and receive all of the funds in one central treasury location? Because I'm not going to go and build 65 legal entities or 65 bank accounts. The answer is pretty simple. It's the Rapyd API. It helps you hold 65 currencies and counting in your business wallet or your treasury function. We offer a client portal which gives you access to monitor those funds and also to manage them without having to chase multiple bank accounts or entities. Also to do FX, do any reporting that needs to be done, including paying off your liabilities in specific markets. And then as we follow the virtuous cycle, this also supports the sellers on making their own vendor payments. So you might be selling to 65 countries and you might have your own suppliers from 20 different other markets that you need to pay out. So we have a product called Rapyd Disburse, which is also part of the same API stack, which can help you make those payouts. We're actually moving that towards a real-time payment infrastructure as well. And if you dialed into any of our earlier conversations, that is the world, that is where the world of payments is now moving towards. And to the top left, this is now switching over to the other side of the equation that Ken mentioned, is how do I convince buyers and how do I make sure conversions are taking place. So assuming you've already solved the seller side of the equation and now you're targeting customer conversions, making sure you've got hyperlocal availability of payment options. So to Eve's point, do I have WeChat Pay in China because I have Chinese consumers, or do I have PayLah, GrabPay, and a bunch of other options in Singapore because all my consumers are in Singapore? You have one choice. Go and integrate 900 payment methods one by one, or use the Rapyd Collect stack, get a single hosted checkout page as your integration, and open up all of those payment options to your buyers. It ensures faster conversions and higher conversions on the buyer side, and hopefully not as many cart abandonment issues, which we'll talk about shortly as well. So Chris, if we move on to the next one. This is just an example of how the infrastructure has been simplified. So you have a seller wallet. So once you've done the onboarding for the seller, you know exactly where their funds are sitting. Think of this as a ledger management system. You have Rapyd sitting in the middle. You have checkout and pay on the buyer side. And you can see your balances real time. So not only are you converting sales faster, but you're also getting access to your own funds as a seller at a much faster pace using the Rapyd stack. And for the uninitiated, it's part of our partnership with Arcadier as well. And moving on with this. This is an example of our hosted checkout page. As you can see on the left-hand side, you have all of the categories of payments. So be it card, bank transfer, cash, or e-wallets. Depending on the buyer's market, you can select all or one of these. And then there are multiple options within these as well. As an example, I like to quote India. Under bank transfer, you would see net banking, which is a bank redirect model, or the UPI stack. Here in Singapore, you would see Pay Now QRs, as well as the eNets, and a host of other options. By doing this, what you're making sure is that all of your marketplace buyers are never abandoning the cart because they don't have the right payment option, or they're concerned about costs of the transaction itself. And this is a page that is available via a single API. You don't need to do any extra graphic design work. It's quick to upload, and you can actually be online in less than 30 minutes for your payments. And moving on, one of the other points that we talked about in the key features of a marketplace was split payments. Now, as a marketplace administrator, I have 1 million sellers, and there are tens of millions of transactions taking place. Do I really want the operational headache of collecting all those funds in a central repository and then disbursing funds to the sellers? What you have is a function called split payment, which can take place at the time of the transaction itself. So from the buyer, the funds, say it's a $100 transaction, the bulk of the funds will move straight to the seller's wallet, and only the marketplace commissions will flow into the marketplace administrator wallet. What this does is reduces lead time, makes a faster process for the buyer to take the transaction, and ensures that the sellers see the funds at a much faster pace as well, which becomes a major differentiator for you as a marketplace admin versus other marketplaces that exist without this function. Moving on. This is an example of how you would see your, as your marketplace sees success and more sellers come on board, this is how you would be able to differentiate and make your marketplace even better. Moving on. So just to summarize, looking at the marketplace audience for Rapyd, all of our friends and clients in that space, there are 5 key pillars that we aim to offer. One is a single global compliance policy, which helps you onboard sellers from multiple countries at the same time. Hyperlocal payment options to ensure that all of your collect options across multiple countries are taken care of. Sorry. A single API for all of these services. What that does is reduces the amount of integration efforts that you require, fewer sprints from your technical teams, a single recon engine, so making sure your finance teams are happy with us as well and they have less complexity to deal with. And last but not the least, infrastructure which helps you disburse funds on a near real-time basis.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then now I think that we would switch into Q&A session. So I think we want to also understand your point of view we reaching the end of 2020, right? Would you be able to share with us what is your number one lessons this year? So maybe start with Eve.
I mean, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this year. I think probably the biggest one is that you can't not digitize your business. No one's immune, and sorry, that's not meant to be a COVID joke. Like, no one is immune to the needs of how technology is changing our lives. Whether I think there's previously been a lot of industries that thought that, oh, we don't necessarily need to digitize. And actually, I think that conventions and meetings is a big one that everyone said, oh, you always have to meet. Business isn't the same otherwise. But when things like a pandemic happen, you have no other choice but to, digitize, figure out new ways to do your businesses. So I think that we've seen that a lot more businesses than we originally had thought have figured out ways to use marketplace technology as a utility rather than just what you normally think of, like a Amazon or an Airbnb. Ken, anything to add?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson is a lot of businesses procrastinate very long time in terms of adoption of technology, even in their day-to-day. And it's, I think, one of the biggest lesson, right? This is one in a lifetime, one in a generation kind of a year, where suddenly you're put in a position where either you close down or you have to remain relevant. And the only way to remain relevant is in the digital space. And that is something that I think is the biggest takeaway for all of us. I think a second takeaway is that you soon realize that a lot of business can be done online. And a lot of naysayers like, oh, you have to meet you face to face in order to get something done. We've seen it happen, and it will be a permanent change in the way we do things. I think that's an important key that, the situation actually woke everyone up, but it's something that we should always have in the back of our minds.
And what about you, Chatty?
Yep. So synonymous with our name, I think speed, rapid.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of businesses have so far, and reinforcing the point Ken made, a lot of businesses have always thought that going online is going to be time consuming and it will involve a lot of effort that might go waste. There's no such thing. The idea that a business should be able to go online and collect payments and make payments quickly or as fast as possible is right there. The technology is right there. You just have to be willing to use it. So do a fast fail, try things, chop and change on the fly, because what was relevant 6 months ago might not be relevant today. We might have a vaccine in 3 months, we might not have a vaccine for the next 2 years, but you need to keep trying. And you need to get online as quickly as possible. And that's where Arcadier and Rapyd are there to help.
Yeah, totally agree with you. And with the recent news of vaccination that coming up and got tested, and hopefully Singapore, as lucky as we are, would be the first country to receive vaccination. I think it's worth it to say that 2021 is a year of hope for lots of people in the world. So with that, right, what is your expectation? What would you hope to happen in the next year?
So I think for 2021, an expectation, at least for marketplaces that we see, is that a lot more B2B marketplaces are going to be taking up the technology. So far this year, it's been a lot of smaller ones that can move very rapidly. And next year, I think now a lot of companies have had to come up with their game plan and see how users are responding to what's happening in the market. And they actually have time now and have been planning. And next year is going to be a big push for larger B2B businesses to put their foot forward when it comes to marketplace technology.
I think, 2021 is, as you said, Kristine, is the year of hope, right, with vaccines coming. One thing I really hope for everyone and businesses is not to be complacent, in a sense that once vaccines is out, you think that you don't have to be online again, but you should always bear in mind that to be relevant, you should actually, even if you're an offline business, you should also conduct some of your business online, or if you can, go totally virtual, because it's the most efficient way to transact. I hope in 2021 that people bear that in mind. It's an interesting lesson that we learned a very hard way, unfortunately, but that's really what I hope for the world.
Chatty, what do you think?
My hope is all for real-time payments, and
That's an ambitious hope.
to get as closer to it as we can, especially for some of the more traditional payment methods out there. And I think 2020 has given us that lesson that 2021 we will all build that infrastructure and get there. So fingers crossed.
Great point. Finger crossed. And then you think with so many businesses actually go online and open or starting in this year and then continue to growth in the next year, is it still space for newcomer to enter? What do you think?
Well, I guess in the 1800s, someone in the intellectual property office in somewhere in the US was saying that everything that can be invented has been invented before in the 1800s, right? There will always be digital transformation and disruption. There will always be space for new business to come online. Those that do not continue to remain relevant, you would move on, and then those who become more relevant, continue to keep relevance, they will continue to grow. And then new ones will start disrupting the market. So there will always be opportunities, and it's never going to be as crowded as people would think it would be.
Great point. Anything to add, Chatty?
I think that was good.
Okay. So I would turn to the crowd here. If you have any questions, would you like to ask our panel here?
It's working. This is probably more of a question to the Arcadier team. So if we talk about the marketplaces in general, probably two of the challenges that I see happening is around basically logistics and delivery. And the second probably is around the counterfeit consumer goods and then knockoff products. So how does your platform help solve for these problems? And then, yeah, you can just tell us around how you help your customers on, solving those challenges.
Yes. So on the platform itself, we definitely don't solve logistics as in having a shipping company that is part of Arcadier's organization. That would make us very big. But we do make sure that our system is enabled with APIs and webhooks and all, so that you can easily integrate to local logistic companies. One approach that we have not taken is to pre-integrate into the various logistic companies, because there's just so many in the world. But on the payment side, we are also very pleased that we are partnering an organization like Rapyd, where your reach is so big. So we have only a selected few payment gateways which we understand has the capability and the reach. We have pre-integrated those elements within. And also at the same time, we actually have all these other connectors for you to actually bring your own payment systems if that particular partner doesn't facilitate payments in your country. So those are the parts that we have a lot of the partnerships in the shipping area as well as the payment side of things to help to make sure that your relevant, your use case, your marketplace use case relevant capabilities are enhanced and able to connect. On top of that, we've also took in the discipline of a lot of the payment marketplaces, best in class examples of how payments are. So for C2C experience, you can even put free text in and then add a surcharge and all that. All that capability is already within the Arcadier system. So it's very fluid. So you don't have to be integrated to delivery to do that. We've given the ability for merchants to actually bring their own logistics types, meet me at the MRT station and all that capabilities, and add on another couple of dollar surcharge. That's not a problem. That's already within the system. In terms of trust, where we have right now is we do enable the merchant the marketplace owner to be able to have super admin, so they can actually help with dispute resolutions between buyers and sellers. It's very easy. There's chat functions and all that. At the same time, also we have reviews. We have all the capabilities of reviews. In terms of trust, if you really want to go to the level extent, already one of our users has already embedded blockchain within their environment. That's also a possibility to enhance trust.
And then just to add on a bit, so along with the ratings and reviews and the super admin, so I mean, it's really up to the marketplace to ensure that there is no counterfeit goods or to try to block it. So along with those super admin powers, you can also turn off items or sellers. And then additionally, you can privatize marketplaces so that you have to vet through your sellers as well as your products before they're actually even released for public viewing. So there are different methods to ensure, or at least to try to combat those issues that often happen on marketplaces.
Yeah. So we do have all that features already within the Arcadier system.
My question is also to the Arcadier team. I wanted to check, in terms of advertising, right, like getting traffic to the marketplaces and such, this is usually the biggest challenges for SMEs or micro SMEs if you go into countries like India and Thailand. How are you supporting, or do you intend to support, I guess, is the first question, and then, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we do get that question a lot, right? So how do you help me advertise and all that? So we have to remind our users that we are a technology company, but we have enabled a lot of parts which allows SEO very easily. We have Google Analytics, all that embedded within the feature set of Arcadier. And that's also the fundamental reason why one of the points I brought up earlier is that you should own one side of the equation. If you don't own one side of the equation, you're trying to advertise to both sides of the business, it's going to be very, very challenging, especially if you're building a B2C kind of environment where you have to advertise. So in that regard, at least if you own one, then you are only advertising on the other side. But for a B2B experience, there's a lot less advertising you require because the environment that you operate in is a lot smaller. More often within an industry, the buyers and sellers know each other. You just have to tell your usual buyers and sellers, this is what I'm doing and this is the marketplace that enable and facilitate. So it's not actually that difficult in terms of the concern about marketplaces per se coming from a marketing standpoint. Just that you have to be sure that you have it all sorted before you start. If you're starting with a clever idea with no industry connections at all, and don't own one side of the equation, you're going to find it very, very difficult.
I also think that we support our users because we have our partnership ecosystem network. So along with payments and logistics partner, we also try to partner with different marketing companies and stuff like that to help incentivize our users to use them. So we get different promotional information, like different promos for them, etc. Because even though we aren't necessarily, like that's not our core function, because we are just a marketplace technology company, we do want to help our users and support them in their business journey, and there's so many different aspects to a marketplace. So we definitely try to make our ecosystem as robust as possible through payment partners like Rapyd, and then different SEO partners who can help our users really come down with a marketing plan as well.
Sorry, Chatty. My question is to Arcadier as well. So probably a two-part question. So talking about the technology platform itself, I think we spoke about how there are use cases that are going hyper-local. From a technology platform standpoint, what are requests that you've seen in the past or in the recent past where there's a tendency where they are pulling the technology innovation to a direction which is hyper-local, something that you might not have thought of in a Singapore context, but you're receiving requests from these new markets or developed or developing markets, which are pulling the technology innovation into this hyperlocal space. And extending that, we spoke about technologies like AR, where companies coming on board, 2020 has accelerated this adoption of digital technologies from merchants who are procrastinating are coming on board very quickly. That probably also pushes innovation to move forward soon, accelerates that. What are some innovative areas that you think that have been out of focus so far that companies like you would be focusing on going forward? Like, for example, a virtual visit to a shop rather than just things being a keyboard plus mouse interaction. Are there like VR and AR coming into play anytime soon?
I think the adoption of this is quite, we would love to share as much of this new generation innovation per se as each individual users of ours particularly adopt a particular experience like augmented reality or blockchain, we try to actually advise and the rest of our users, you can actually do that with some use cases to share with them so that they all can learn from how other users half a way around the world might be very innovative in their adoptions of such technology. So we have that sharing as well. Second thing is we also start to be very mindful, and if it is something it appears that a lot of our users want the same technology, we'll try to really partner. So like augmented reality, we partner with a company called SimloCity out of the US that actually does this augmented reality kind of experience so that we can then bring that technology to all our users half a way around the world at the same time. Future technology, I think machine learning would be something that will be well adopted even in a marketplace space, like deeper recommendation engines per se, or loading items in when you understand where to pick all the items and load online from another database, and all that is things that we're starting to see people asking, or at least potential partners out there have been asked, my technology does this, can I partner you? In-flight translation as well, and even verbalized translation. So we've seen a lot of that type of partners coming to us. We've even ourselves never thought that type of technology would work so well with marketplaces. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah,
I think I have a new question to you.
No.
All right, so my question's for Arcadier, and it's coming from a product perspective. So in the past, from my experience, I've noticed that when listing your sellers, it's difficult to find a template that works for everyone, no matter how similar the products are, even if it's just like one particular niche product. So my question to you is, how do you come up with a template that's general enough to cover everything while also allowing your sellers to customize certain aspects? And if not, what is like a sort of suitable acceptance criteria that you not cater to?
Okay. Well, that brings us quite far back history, actually. When we started with the SaaS business, we actually started looking and mapping all the marketplace types, right? So those days in 2016, we actually were looking at this what we call the marketplace sharing economy lexicon that crowd companies, a US-based company, actually managed to map all the marketplace types into 13 lexicons, honeycombs. He calls it the honeycomb. And each of them, he has placed all the different marketplaces that ever exist during that time into all these, whether it's medical sector or is it rental and services, and then they even have crowdfunding, all the different marketplaces. So we took that and we looked at the 80-20 rule, having all these sectors. What are they? Are they generally just retail marketplace? What are services? What are, block out dates and hours and minutes timing, and what is B2B? So we mapped out, and with 80-20 rule, actually only 4 or 5 key template types actually services 80% of all marketplace features. You'll be very surprised. They all share very common elements, whether it's a Grab food delivery to an eBay, it's about the item, it's about the booking of the slots and all that stuff. So we took that and we actually mapped out all the features that will be required in that sense, that covers all these this 80% of marketplace types that has already been identified. And that's how we started to look at the product and build according to that roadmap. And over time, obviously, once that baseline and the hygiene baseline is done, we actually do have an open community on our system where users can request for new features and then they upvote. So it's open community, anyone can go in there. So that's how we learned also what are the well sought out features that we don't have on our system, and therefore we would build against those. So it's always about the market feedback. Yeah. So we have a voting system right now as well. It's public available.
Thank you so much. And then I think with that, we wrap to the last questions that Ken has just helped to share with us. So I think thank you so much for coming today and share your insight with us. Tune in into Rapyd LinkedIn channel, and then we have continuous like different fireside chat and also sessions talking about payment and other topics if you're interested every day this week.